So let me try this as a way of getting at this a little bit more statistically and cleanly. I'd like you to think of a couple of examples of what I'm about to describe here. Top executive of a company, you name it, let's make it Coca-Cola, steps down. The board of directors, this doesn't happen often, but it does happen, made an enormous error and brought in the wrong successor here. And after 12, maybe 18 months, think Leo Apotheker at HP, it took 11 months there, board re-intervenes, tosses that number one successor out, brings in number two. Now, in the U.S. landscape, and I think we can all think of examples from outside the U.S. as well, but within the U.S. itself, Coca-Cola went through this, HP, Procter & Gamble, Apple, really get going. We've got a lot of statistical evidence, net out all these other factors, and here's now our starting platform for going forward, 2 versus 1. What's the difference? Within 12 to 18 months, think of your own internal metrics when you appraise the performance of people who work for you. Within 12 to 18 months, as much as 10 to 15% upward or downward movement, depending on whether you had that person or this person. That's going to focus our conversation now, that's the end of the warm-up, on what exactly is 2's qualities versus number 1's qualities. A lot of ways to get at that. What's the common thread by which the best have led? In my limited experience, we often pull out some subset or maybe a slightly larger set of items that include, take a look at the top, got to have a vision. Somebody already said that in referencing Mother Teresa and Martin Luther King. I've got a few others up there as well. I'm not certain this is the best, at least it's my judgment call for the moment, of a minimalist set of principles that ought to guide anybody's leadership, including our own. What would we add? Take a look at that. The wording may not be totally clear. Let's not worry about that now. Does anything else come to mind? Push your thinking. Right here in your best voice.
Likeable.
Likeable, good. Are you appealing as a person? Very good. What's a number 6? See, up to number 17. Number 17.
Commitment things not on there.
Something about commitment. If you really believe in a cause, you're going to stay with it and not easily back off from it. Good.
I'm not sure if it's captured here, but make sure your team has buy-in to what you're trying to do.
Yeah, you're going nowhere without that Disney team, for example. You're going absolutely nowhere. Steve Jobs was going nowhere without Tim Cook and a lot of people working around him there at Apple as well. All right, here's what we're going to do now. Unlike flying a Cessna 172, where the checklist is set for you, in leadership, you've got to create your own. And it's going to be customized according to where you are physically, type of company, organization, company, or country culture for that matter. Think about all the things you do or ought to have done that have got nothing to do with words and leading other people, but everything to do with close contact, a handshake, walking by somebody's office. It's not up, I don't think I had it up there in that leader's checklist, but everything you do that's got nothing to do with words. Academics call it nonverbal communication, boring phrase, but maybe that ought to be in the repertoire. I've got academic colleagues that say this, about a third or some major fraction of your communication of what you want done and your willingness to accept your leadership is all about what you do without words at all. Aside from your vision and where the heck you're going and thinking strategically, motivating people, it's a separate task. How do we get to people's inner drive, or in this case, their pride? Let me now get to the, call it the heart of the matter here, back on strategic thinking and acting. Don't fail.
Die trying.
You've got to go all the way trying. You have to do your duty.
And I'm counting on you.
And I'm counting on you personally. Yeah, speaking of personal. Another item to take a slight divergence here on that checklist was the act of helping other people become good at the act of leading. After all, leadership is partly natural and it is partly learned. But back to that one of the items on the checklist, developing leadership in others. I think we would all agree that's part of the leader's calling. 3 well-worn methods, amply confirmed by research, and by the way, accepted, adopted, incorporated in our program here are the following. Number 1, ask people to get out there and think about leadership by watching the world go by, picking up books by Peter Drucker and Jim Collins. Number 2, you got to find a mentor. And then finally, 3rd, best method of all. Companies all over the world that I've worked with use this, you use this. I'm going to put you in a lot of situations where you're going to have to lead and learn to lead by doing. It's not going to be too much of a stretch experience, but I'm going to get you a little bit out of your box again and again. This school follows all 3 precepts. We've got a class on leadership. Some of you predate our adoption of a required leadership for all incoming undergraduates, all incoming MBA students. Number 2, coming out this fall, we're about to provide a personal coach, a personal professional coach to every, you count them, every incoming MBA student. Wow. We got 1,000 showing up in September. Exactly. A lot of work's going into that. The school is committed for that. And then finally, the school has adopted a whole range of experiences. Most of you have been through one form or another of the experience here of learning by doing. Some of you have been with us in Antarctica, for example, or you've been active in a club. All that is that 3rd and truest, strongest method for leadership development.